Hello, it's the Productize podcast. I'm Brian Castle. Thanks as always for tuning in. And if you're enjoying these podcasts, I'd really appreciate if you head over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review. That always helps out the show. Today I'm talking to Jordan Johnson. He's the co-founder of RipplePop.com. They solve that WordPress developer as a service problem. We've seen many shapes and sizes and different iterations of businesses that have solved the WordPress help need. Now, obviously, WordPress is a hugely widespread platform that tons of businesses use for their websites. But what Jordan and his partner have found is the specific needs of agencies, different types of creative agencies and whatnot who serve clients who have WordPress-based websites, and they need to have a developer available to service those websites. And so it was interesting to hear the evolution from the more typical productized model that you see in the WordPress space of like unlimited small jobs to a higher priced monthly retainer where they match you up with a direct developer and they actually provide them with package of hours for that developer. And we get into that. So yeah, we talk about how they figured out the structure and also an interesting way that they actually launched this business. It was out of the kind of like explosion of a previous startup that they were employed at, where all the clients were left in a lurch, and Jordan and his partner were able to pick them up as their first customers. That was an interesting part of the story. So yeah, let's head right into it. Here is my conversation with Jordan Johnson from RipplePop. Enjoy. Jordan Johnson, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So yeah, it's great to connect with you. You are the co-founder of RipplePop.com.
Yes, I am.
So why don't you tell us about it? You're in the WordPress space here. Yeah, how do you describe what it is?
Yeah, so really at RipplePop, kind of our main goal for the longest time has always been to match our customers with, a developer that's really going to make them happy. So, Mike and I, our other co-founder, kind of know from firsthand experience, what it's like to have a customer that really enjoys working with you, having a client, that really enjoys you completing their work and just sort of you being their go-to guy. And so what we really wanted to offer was that, to our customers was, a plan where we give you your sort of go-to WordPress guy who you can hand your work off to, and expect reliable, professional sort of experience in the process. You're not going to have somebody bail on you for a week and not answer emails or anything like that. At the end of the day, you'll have Mike and I to report to if, your developer's not reporting in. But from the start, it's always sort of been about that one-on-one relationship. Instead of, having a pool of developers and a customer submits a request and whoever can get to it fastest gets to it, we kind of go the opposite route and say, no, this is your developer, John. He's going to be your developer. He's online during these hours. Don't expect 24/7, coverage, but he will be your guy, going in and out of all your sites, just him. And so that really seemed to, kind of be a big point for a lot of customers. They really seem to enjoy that.
Yeah, interesting. I see a lot of these WordPress-based productized services, right? And and it seems like you have taken this a little bit more interesting angle on it. Like we've seen several of the lower cost per month, unlimited small requests, small updates, like update your plugins and I don't know, tweak a photo or small things like that. But it looks like the RipplePop, it seems, is geared more towards we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of development needs, and we need a direct developer.
Yeah, exactly. So, when we originally started, we were kind of playing that same game, which was, hey, how do we offer a plan under $100? We'll do small tasks only, and kind of the service has a scope. We started out that way, and that's, what a lot of other, services are doing is, 30-minute requests and under, $50 a month, $70 a month, and you're all set. And really to us over time, that became, an obvious race to the bottom. Every week there was another service coming out for $10 cheaper than the last one, making all the same promises. And so, it really made it hard to say, what makes our service really stand out over the others. When, at the end of the day, the answer was, most likely nothing. It's a lot of the same, in general workers and people that each business is looking for to be the, developer for these customers. And so at the end of the day, we really had to think about, what's going to be a difference maker and why somebody chooses us. And that's maybe about a year and a half in, we really decided to change up our pricing model and our structure to no longer be going for, just the smaller customers or smaller people looking for smaller day-to-day things, and targeting more agencies who, I have a month's worth of work to offload and I really need that reliable developer. And so that's kind of where we shifted our attention to, was instead of, Bob's Donut Shop and helping him with his small little posts every week, we started trying to target more agencies and people who, I have 10 websites lined up for the next 2 months and I need, 3 developers full time, to get those done. That sort of customer.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go back in your story and hear how that evolved, because it sounds like you had some pretty interesting learnings and pivots, if you will. I still want to ask a few more questions about how it actually works today.
Sure.
Are you primarily working with agencies? So they're hiring RipplePop for developers to then work on a number of different sites for their clients. Is that?
Yeah. Pretty much agencies or small, like one-man band style agencies, somebody who just, they're kind of overwhelmed with work and they want, a reliable source to pass things off to. And what we did with our pricing structure and our changes to the whole plan was really to just think about, what do agencies want? These sort of unlimited and, sort of, grandiose plans that are offered all around the web for, under $100 for unlimited WordPress fixes a month and all that sort of terminology that they'll use. That's not really, that sounds great to an agency, but at the end of the day, they want to know, how much work am I going to get done a day? What can I expect? Can the developer meet this deadline? And most of the time with those other services, the answers are very up in the air. Well, that might not be in scope of our service, or, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And you can only stack so many of those 30-minute requests.
Exactly.
In a day, right?
Yes. So what we decided to do was, originally when we started, we were kind of against this idea, and it sort of, after just deliberating on it for a while, we decided that it seemed like the best route. And that was to kind of go back to the hourly sort of pricing or plans. So now when an agency signs up for us, they sign up for 2 hours of work a day, 4 hours of work a day, or 8 hours of work a day. It translates a lot easier over to agencies, and it allows them to scale up. They might try one of our developers at 2 hours a day. The first week goes really well. Okay, let's ramp him up to 4 hours a day for the next week. So that's kind of how our pricing changed, was, instead of going this unlimited, we'll make all these promises for under $100 sort of pricing. We said, no, we'll give you, 2 hours a day tracked, and, our management keeps track of all of that stuff and their check-ins and making sure that they're emailing the customers during their shift and all of that good stuff. And that really seemed to resonate, with agencies and with people really looking to offload a lot of work, because they didn't want these sort of lofty promises. They wanted sort of, what's it break down to? How much work am I getting from this person a day?
Got it. And so as I see your pricing today, of course, we don't know when people might be listening to this. Your pricing would probably change over time. But as of today, here in the middle of 2020, what I see on the website is the top plan is $29.99 for, looks like a full-time, 8 hours a day. And then the $14.99 for 40 hours per month.
Yeah, we have a full-time option currently, and we have what's called our flex option currently. Did you want me to kind of go into details about those? Or?
I'm curious about, you talk about sort of comparing it to the lower priced, smaller job services out there. I remember WP Curve was sort of the original version of that.
Yeah.
But it would seem to me that your main competition would be agencies just hiring their own developer directly, no?
Correct. Yeah. So really one of our main places that people will go source people alternatively would be Upwork, right? Or, some sort of freelancer market, where they can find the person themselves, negotiate the rate, and, have somebody on full time. Really what we're bringing to the table is we're saying, hey, we'll do all the finding, interviewing, making sure they have the right skills. And, we'll show you, who we have on our team. If they match what you need, great, go ahead and get started. And you don't have to spend all of that upfront time of your own time, hiring, meeting with these people, making sure the team's okay, all that sort of stuff. And with, a 14-day money back guarantee, it makes it pretty risk-free in a sense to get going with a developer with us, see if it works before, potentially trying a plan B if it just wasn't the right fit.
Got it. Very nice. Do you ever get the request, or maybe you get it a lot, like somebody's been working with one of your developers for several months and they really like how it's going? Like, can they buy them out if they will?
Yeah. So it's funny you say that. We've had a lot of internal discussions on what we might want our policy to be around that.
Have you had those discussions because you get the request?
We have gotten it a few times, yes. But it was more so a question of we knew it was going to happen before we switched to this model. And so we had to have sort of the discussion because I remember having a talk with my dad about switching to this model. He's a big, kind of business guy. And that was the first thing he said was, well, what's the buyout cost going to be if somebody wants to take your person full time and take them away from you? What's the penalty? What's the cost? That sort of thing.
Yeah, because I think that is a pretty standard like recruiting model, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. So in any sort of like staffing model, there is, some sort of fee for that. With the discussions Mike and I had, I was kind of on the side of, hey, let's come up with a fee. And he was kind of on the side of, hey, our developers are our talent and our value. If we offer them to be bought out, then, we're potential. I mean, you can always, in a sense, find replacement developers. But for us, our goal is to not necessarily grow RipplePop to be this insanely large thing that is just dwarfing all other companies. Our goal is, we have a set customer number limit in mind that we want to hit. And when we hit that number, we're not, going to be chasing new sales or, really trying to grow the company. We have a sort of good enough, level that we're trying to get to that really, we want to keep the team small. We want to keep our customer numbers limited so that, we really have a good grip on the quality of people, we're giving each customer. For us, it's not about, scaling to this huge company. It's really about, becoming the right size where we really feel we're servicing the customers well, and we've grown to a point where, we're happy and we can think about, whatever's next.
That's interesting. I mean, can you tell me more about that? Like, well, first of all, are you able to share like what does your team size look like right now? Like how many different developers? And are there any other roles involved here, like project managers or anything like that?
Yeah, so we have a few managers. We have our hiring manager who is, their sole job is to go find talent and get them started in our interviewing and hiring process. We have a customer champion who's kind of your standard, customer support. If you're going to send an email with some general questions, she'll be the one to reply to you. We also have another manager whose role is to kind of fill the gaps in between them. So some days a developer will be sick and they need a replacement for a customer. And, we need a manager to go find a replacement that's suitable, make sure that they have the customer's contact information and the shift schedule, and that they know when they're replacing that developer, what's, first up on their plate for that day, things like that. So those are really the three big management roles that we have in place. Otherwise, it really is just Mike and I and those three managers. And we have, it's fluxing at any time, but I think currently we're in the high 40s for how many developers that we currently have. So,
okay. And they're all based in the Philippines, is that right?
Yeah. So we do source from the Philippines for a few reasons. One of the main ones really is customers want to be able to communicate with their dev easily and don't want to feel like there's a lot of miscommunications. And English skills for Filipinos is really excellent, mainly just because they're taught it at such a young age. Yeah, and then you just have, the price factor where I can pay, one of our developers in the Philippines a living wage, enough where he can support his family, all that good stuff, and want to stay with the company and grow with the company. Whereas, if I'm paying a college kid here, 6 months down the road, they're looking for their next opportunity because I can't scale up their pay. So it works on both ends where, we can really have long-term happy team members, as well, just because, with how the dollar and Filipino peso works and all that fun stuff. But, it's just how, a lot of these services are going to work with sort of labor arbitrage, right? Is we'll go find the labor and, we'll pay a markup on that for, in a sense, finding them, making sure they have the right talents, testing them and hiring them.
I still wanted to ask you about because you mentioned that there's sort of like a cap in your mind in terms of like Is it team size? Is it revenue level where you'll feel comfortable? And are you at that point now, or what does that look like for you?
Yes. Yeah. We're not all that far, but, yeah. So really in our mind, it's sort of a revenue figure, which is based around how many customers at what tiers on our plans it would take to get to those numbers. And it's more so just because, like I said, Mike and I, sure, we're like anyone else. We would love for this to make as much money as possible, but we aren't looking to, like I said, grow this thing to be some managerial nightmare. We like that it's a smaller team of people we all know really well, runs really well. And really, we're not too far away from being at a capacity where we feel really good about where we're at as a business. And then Mike and I, also feel good from, our level of thinking about what's next. Are we going to branch into, for example, we're not necessarily doing this stuff, but, just ideas throwing around are, you could branch into making plugins for customers because we have such an in-depth knowledge of, what plugins and tools they're using that we could make something so tailored to our experience with those customers and sell that sort of stuff. Right. So,
Yeah. Like, it's interesting, like, because you can keep growing using systems and it doesn't even have to be like, it's just really a preference for everyone, and I think it's really interesting, and it's good to highlight, you here on the podcast, hearing someone who's willing to say, like, once we reach a comfortable level and we're almost there, that's good enough.
yeah.
We don't have to do the growth at all costs thing.
Yeah.
But is that your thinking right now? Is it that there's sort of this desire to maybe someday go into software products, plugins, and what have you, rather than really growing out the management?
There's always going to be a desire to move into software when you work in, sort of labor or hourly work. Anything that you can just sell over and over again will seem extremely attractive once you've been doing what we've been doing for a while. But really for us, it just breaks down to kind of a lot of the Basecamp guys, Jason Fried and David DHH or whatever. I can't think of his last name.
Yeah.
Those Basecamp guys sort of, methodology, right? Where, Basecamp isn't looking to grow to be the biggest company out there, the biggest project management software out there. They're looking to
Although
service.
they are pretty big.
Yeah, they are. But they don't necessarily take in, feature requests and go implement that because the user wants it, right? They implement features that they want, right? And it's not so much, a relationship of trying to make Basecamp the biggest thing in the world that it could be, because, I think they would have made a lot of decisions differently. Their decision making always from the start was, let's make Basecamp a project management tool we really want to use.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, with a productized service like this, I think you're smart to keep it limited in scope. I sort of have a similar mentality with my service business, Audience Ops, where it's like, yeah, we do continue to grow, but there have been plenty of requests and things that we just say no to because it's like, it's not part of our package. We're not interested in having these like exceptions to the rules and sort of things. So let's go back in the story a little bit. So RipplePop, you mentioned that you started around 5 years ago. What were you doing before then? And also, how did you meet your co-founder? Like, do you come from a background as a WordPress developer or web developer?
Yeah, I have a background in web development. Originally, I started college in graphic design and switched over to web development. So I kind of always had this design development background. My mom or aunt or uncle always asking me for, hey, can you put up a website for me, sort of stuff. And out of college, I was actually hired at Ogilvy.
Nightmares about those requests.
Yeah, right. I still get phone calls from random family members about web help, which is kind of cemented as that guy in their mind now.
Can you fix my printer?
Yeah. I'm like, probably, but
do I have to?
Yeah, but Google's your friend. Out of college, I started working at Ogilvy and Mather, big ad agency, and it was really awesome. Don't get me wrong, I have nothing bad to say about it. Really awesome place to work, really awesome people. The only thing was it just felt still like an assembly line in a sense where, I was, a creative, but I was being passed a project that made it to this point, and my job was to do these 3 or 4 tinkering things and pass it on to the next person. it was never really seeing a project through. It was never, sitting with a client discussing, never getting, honest feedback from a customer on, wow, I really liked what you did here. It was a lot of, like I said, just felt like assembly line work. So I, just started looking for other opportunities after spending a year there and, kind of getting a good year of agency life under my belt. And I found this small startup in Chicago, about 10 team members, and decided, hey, I'll apply there. And I heard back from them, and everything, came out, looking really good. It seemed kind of like a fun move, maybe not the smartest move. A lot of people I talked to are like, no, get 4 or 5 years at Ogilvy under your belt and you'll be able to get a job, whatever agency you want next. And, I kind of went against that because I just, I had an itch that wasn't being scratched in a sense. And I wasn't about to, spend all my nights and weekends trying to scratch that itch and have no energy, left over. So I left for the small sort of startup life. It was a startup called Build This. And they were a web development shop making web applications and, websites and all that fun stuff. And, I kind of went from being a little tinkerer on the line to, wearing one of 20 different hats every day and putting out, 30 different fires and just kind of being, a 1 minute you're a developer, the next minute you're a manager, and, the next minute you're in a client meeting and you're just kind of, keeping the ship moving. So it was quite an experience to go from super organized, agency life to chaotic startup life. About a year into startup life at Build This, they were purchased by another web development company. Surprisingly, just wanted to keep the name and a few of the top customers, and they ended up letting everyone on the team go.
That's strange. Usually, like an acquisition like that is usually about acquiring the talent, right?
Yeah. It was very strange. It was a really weird scenario. Anyways, Mike started working at Build This shortly after I did, doing some web development and stuff. He has actually been my best friend since 3rd grade. He moved here from South Africa, and he was my neighbor across the street. I just went over there one day and said, "Hi, I'm Jordan. I'm your kind of neighbor. You want to, go jump on my trampoline," sort of thing. And we've been best friends ever since. So he was working at a smaller agency at the time and was kind of unhappy. And I said, hey, I'm over at this, startup and it's pretty fun. They have a position open. And he ended up coming to work there too. And so it was pretty awesome to be able to work with my best friend, bring the dog into the office, sort of stuff you get to do at startups. And, just kind of have that experience.
What led you both to A, just decide like, hey, I think at some point we want to do something together, like start a business. And then B, like what was the point where it was like, okay, I think it's time to actually dive in and leave this company?
A lot of it really started when we were there. Mike and I knew about WP Curve. It was funny you brought them up earlier. We kind of knew what they were doing. We knew that, hey, we at Build This should consider a support plan, recurring revenue. It's really, we just noticed that, project to project, it's very much, a gamble to hope that you're going to land the next project to keep your team employed for the next 6 months sort of thing. And so, we just saw the monthly recurring revenue model and thought, hey, this is a good idea that, we can get some monthly recurring revenue coming in and really have a baseline of how much money we can expect month to month. And so it was an idea that we were kind of shopping around then, never quite got off the ground just because too many fires to put out, too many, customers with deadlines and whatnot. And by the time the acquisition was made, we had, I can't remember what the number was, but quite a few, 20 or 30 or so customers who, no longer had a web shop to turn to for help. And so that was sort of the day, pretty much the day that Mike and I found out that, okay, we're being acquired and in 2 weeks, you guys are going to need to find your own thing to do. Was pretty much, hey, let's come up with a plan and let's contact these customers who are, no longer with Build This. And let's see if they want to still work with us. We can tell them, we were their developers at Build This before the acquisition. And, if they want to stick with us as their developers, they can. It will just be under this new sort of business.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was really, that sort of launching pad to have that. Not everyone has that out of the gate.
Yeah. And so with that, you and Mike, you were basically in contact with these clients through the previous company. I mean, was there any sort of formal agreement when the acquisition happened or when the announcement was made that like, hey, you're all like free to contact the clients if you want, or was it specifically you and Mike who could do that? Like, how did that work?
Yeah. So we had a conversation with the owners and we said, hey, what's going to happen to those people and their projects? Because there was one site in particular we were working on and it was 30-40% of the way done. And I was kind of concerned because, I really, come to care for some of these customers who end up being really nice to you. They'll go by and have lunch with you some days or whatnot. A lot of them are local Chicago people. I felt bad that, hey, this guy's got a website, we promised we were going to deliver it and you guys are just going to, close the door on him. Do Mike and I, do we have permission to contact these customers and, not leave this money on the table? And so, yeah, we got the okay from them for the customers that were, not on the list of customers going over with the acquisition. But yeah, it was a really fortunate scenario in that we had that sort of springboard to jump off of, to start off of, and have 20 or 30 customers sort of out of the gate, kind of ready to sign up. So we weren't having to get part-time jobs in between or anything like that to really get it off the ground.
And were you like overwhelmed with taking, like, was it just you and Mike, or did you have help at that point?
Yeah, it was just Mike and I for about the first year. We basically, just had to come up with a system to make our lives easy. And for us, it was, all right, I'll manage these 15 customer Trello boards. We made a Trello board, a to-do list in progress done. I managed 15 and he managed 15. And, for a while we were kind of happy living in that, that little world of, we just got 15 customers each to keep happy. And as long as they're happy, we're happy.
Just a minute to tell you about Process Kit. If your operation needs to become more efficient and more predictable so that your team never lets anything fall through the cracks, then it's time to implement Process Kit. Process Kit is process-driven project management software made for powering client services businesses. It's especially designed with Productize services in mind. Create powerful SOPs with built-in if this then that automations, and then use those processes to power all of your repeatable projects. Whether you're managing a pipeline of new clients onboarding to your service, or tracking weekly deliverables, sales proposals, marketing assets, or admin work, Process Kit is your team's place for getting it all done. But more importantly, done right. Use our powerful Zapier integration to hook Process Kit into all of your other systems. And if you'd like expert help with improving your processes and automations, ask about our Process Kit Implementer service. Request your free demo and trial at processkit.com. How about like, like billing and revenue? Like, did you basically contact each of those individual customers and sort of negotiate like a new monthly rate based on what they were paying before?
Yeah. So most of the people we contacted were working with Build This for one-off projects. So it was more like we were being, contracted for a project. We didn't have an MRR, like monthly recurring plan at Build This. So when we came up to them and we said, hey, we realize you had Build This on retainer for probably an expensive amount or, a contract open. And we said, we're planning on offering a $79 a month plan where you can always have a bug in our ear and always ask for help if you need it. And, so to everybody there, it seemed like a steal in comparison to, working with sort of these retainers or these large contracts or whatnot.
And so you actually started off with those clients with that low, monthly plan, the $79 a month?
Yep. It was $79 a month for one site covered. And we would do like 2 or 3 15 to 20 minute tasks a day. So kind of your standard lower cost support plan structure that it is now, or that you'll see kind of now is what we were doing then. Like I said, we looked at what WP Curve was doing. We looked at sort of the pricing model, what they were doing with, ads or blogging and marketing and whatnot. And, we converted our first customers from, just people we knew at RipplePop. And then, we kind of did our own, one-off sales, emailing, marketing campaigns, things like that to really fill out, like I said, 15 customers for Mike and I. When one would leave, try and find one more. And just kind of, like I said, live in that little happy world for a little while.
Huh, that's interesting. So from there, like you said that you and Mike kind of managed that for about a year. what did you learn? And I mean, as you were saying before, the small jobs model doesn't like where did that sort of fall down for you? Was it that you were just getting too many small requests per day per client? Like, how did that work out?
It more so breaks down to who a $79 a month customer is. And I don't mean that in any offense to any of our past customers or anybody looking for a plan at that price, but it's more so a matter of when you're dealing with, someone who is paying you $79 a month for support. Generally, that $79 means quite a bit to them. It's quite an expense for their maintenance of their website. And so that carries a lot of weight in terms of, if you're dealing with, I'll just go with the Bob's Donut Shop example again. And, Bob runs the site, he runs the donut shop, something goes down on his site. He thinks it's, absolute end of the world. Everything needs to stop to handle getting Bob's site back online. He thinks for $79 a month that, he should be able to call me on the phone, text me, whatever, right? For some reason that, that lower cost customer thinks that the service quality should be just as high as if, you were paying thousands a month or something.
It's so funny how that paradox has been there for so long, and it's so true, right? It's weird how like the lower budget clients there are and the lower they're paying. It's not the case for everyone. I hate making these blanket statements, but you see these patterns all the time where it's like the less that they're paying, the less budget that they have, the more demanding they can be, and a lot of times they're more difficult personalities to work with. And then I used to always be amazed, and I still am sometimes, with the high budget clients, the large companies. They're paying a lot. It's almost like it's just too easy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it really is crazy, and that's kind of what we came to notice was we changed from $79 a month to what we thought was extremely risky at the time, and we didn't know how it was going to work. We switched to a $370 a month plan for unlimited site coverage. So it was really no different than our original plan. The only difference was instead of one site covered by the plan, it's unlimited. So it made it, great for agencies. If you have 50 sites and you just want one plan to pass off a couple of things a night to a developer, it attracted a lot of agencies due to that. So when we made that change, we thought, oh no, people are going to see this as too expensive. We're going to have difficulty selling it. And it was, it sold just as well as the other plan, if not better, had just as positive of a customer reaction, had less churn in terms of, just people leaving us every month. And overall, the customer dealing with them was much easier, in every sort of regard in terms of how demanding they were. If a site went down overnight, and it wasn't our developer's fault, it just, happened to go down. They were the ones to be, the most patient in a sense, right? Where, just please try and get this back up during your next shift instead of, I demand you get online right now and respond to me or else I'm asking for a refund. So yeah, it was a big shift when we changed our pricing to that 370 model where, an agency could come to us with unlimited sites. And again, because we were dealing with agencies, we were dealing with a lot more people that sort of, knew what it was going to be like or sort of knew the development experience. And so they knew, kind of what they were handing off to us. And, if it had complexity where, Bob's Donut Shop is not going to know the complexity of, adding some custom functionality to his site. Where these agencies, they'll understand, hey, I know this might take a few weeks, just make some progress on it every day, sort of stuff. So it definitely was a big sort of, moment for us to no longer play that, cheapest pricing plan out there and say, no, we have a specific customer and it's going to be, agencies or small one-man band type operations. And we want to be sort of their go-to developer.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your hiring process and how did you get started with growing the team of developers and going to the Philippines and using Upwork and all that? Or I don't even know if you do use Upwork, but
yeah,
how does that work out?
Yeah, so a lot of it really came from really just taking cues from what others were doing. Design Pickle and Russ Perry over there have been, a big influence on, not only these productized services, but just, us in general and, cues that we were taking along the way. But yeah, we saw that they were mainly sourcing from the Philippines, and we listened to podcasts as to why. And it all seemed, pretty much the same reasoning I was explaining earlier. And it all seemed like, all right, if we're going to try and find, when Mike and I were about a year in, we said, this is fun and all, but I don't know if I want to be doing the dev work day in and day out. I don't know if I want to be logging in and, dealing with 15 potentially happy or angry customers every day. I'd rather pay someone to do that and scale this up a little bit. And so it was about a year in when we decided to do that, and kind of delegate the dev work to someone else and really focus on scaling. And that's when, like I said, we were kind of going through and seeing what other services were doing, where they were sourcing from and why. And, we really just went to the Philippines because we saw that, people were sourcing from there with pretty good luck. And we spent quite a while finding our first dev. We really didn't have a hiring process or testing or anything, formal like that. It was, posting up the job, taking in applicants, doing Zoom calls with each one of them, following up, giving them, test sort of requests to handle, seeing how they would reply to emails, all that sort of stuff. Really just, one-off picking the right person. So we found our first developer. His name is Daniel. He is still with us today. And that was really the big sort of moment for us was, we got a developer in place who, full-time was taking care of all of our customers. And Mike and I now, had this free time to start thinking about, advertising, getting new customers, how many customers per dev is the right ratio? What does that leave our profit margins at? Kind of really starting to have a lot of the fun conversations. And so, our team sort of built slowly from there, and Daniel has always been sort of our go-to guy where, we have a much more formal hiring process now, and a hiring manager, but Daniel is still our sort of final round, interviewer where, he's seen everything under the sun over the past, 3 or 4 years with us. So, he's always the one to say, yeah, I think they have what it takes, or, no, I don't think they're going to be able to service our customers very well.
Very cool. You mentioned advertising. Like, how have you been doing marketing and the growth throughout the years?
Yeah. So really, again, it comes down to Mike and I really trying to keep this thing as small and efficient as possible, where we said, hey, there's a million marketing channels we can try out there. We could do LinkedIn, YouTube, Google Ads, Facebook, whatnot. And we said, instead of really spreading ourselves too thin and trying them all and probably failing for a long time at all of them, let's just really figure out one good sales channel right now. And, you obviously can't build a table on one leg, but, we first just had to find something, a sales channel, and actually understand how it works, how to improve it. And so we just chose Facebook ads, mainly, just due to resources out there, people we had been watching, just ideas that we had to try. And, over the past, 3 or 4 years since we started running those, really Facebook has been our main channel for, finding new audiences, testing new ad creative, getting new customers. It's almost all, Facebook advertising at the moment.
And like those kind of point to like a consultation sales funnel sort of thing? Or do people sign up without even talking to you?
Yeah, so we've tried quite a few things. The sales consultation funnel was what we tried early on because we wanted it to really work in a sense. We know that not a lot of people like to sign up for these things without talking to someone on the phone. If you're going to be spending, hundreds of dollars a month over $79, it's a lot harder to just sort of sign up without getting your questions answered or, just making sure somebody can get on the phone. So for a while, we did the landing page, which really drove to a consultation call with me. That was working really, really well in terms of conversion rate and all of that sort of stuff. The only thing is, my afternoons were blocked off from 1 to 5 p.m. every day. And over time, that starts to have an effect on, what your output can really be for the business during the other hours. And, your sales are in a sense linear or capped at, potentially how many calls you can have. So Mike and I did a lot of work to really beef up things like our FAQ and our documentation and things to answer questions before they happen. We used to have a live chat on our site, but Mike is a very like one piece flow type of guy, if you're familiar with that methodology. And he's not a big fan of, having notifications on his phone sort of thing. He doesn't like to get disrupted from whatever he is, actively working on. And so, that disruption can be anything like, a live chat, a new email, anything like that. And so we, really needed to crack down and work on the business, but I had, 4 or 5 calls every day. I was answering live chats, I was working sales in a sense. And so a lot of the other parts of the business were, struggling just because I didn't have the time of day to really give them that. And so that's when we, like I said, really built out the FAQ, built out our documentation. We took the live chat off of the site. We noticed that sales really weren't affected that much. Most of the people live chatting weren't really the people who were going to be signing up anyway. It was kind of an interesting thing to find. And then we removed the consultation call as well. That did have an effect on sales, or how effective, in a sense, the sales and the ad conversions were. But we were still seeing conversions to the point where, calculating it out with lifetime value of the customer, where it just made sense not to reintroduce calls if we could still get sales. So we kind of reduced our funnel back down to, originally it was much more like a funnel, right? You got into the funnel by booking a call. I got on the call with you, follow-up emails were sent, all the really kind of standard marketing practice sort of stuff. And, now it's much more simplified in the sense of, hey, here's our product. If it's for you, it's for you. If it's not, it's not.
So if they just come to the website and purchase, like what happens from there?
Yeah. So basically immediately our customer champion gets alerted when you sign up. And she will send you an email, welcoming you, introducing herself and her role, and letting you know that, if you were to just sign up out of the blue, we don't exactly know your needs just yet. So she would probably, say, hey, specifically, is there anything, you're looking for that I can make sure I find the best fit person on our team? If not, we have these 3 great people. I can assign any one of them. But, are there any specifics? Are you using any specific WordPress plugins that you need an expert in? Or, something like that, which can help guide us to making, a better long-term decision for them. So generally that process gets taken care of within 24 hours of you signing up. And then your developer's ready to start kind of the next day sort of thing. Most customers will, and what we kind of changed in our funnel is, instead of a consultation, it is a share your needs form. So if you want to engage with us before signing up, you can share your needs with us, which is just a simple form that says, hey, what are you dealing with on a daily basis? How much help do you think you need? What tools are you using the most? Is there anything else you want to tell us? And so that's now the way that people sort of enter into a conversation with us if they're interested and have questions, is they fill out, what specific needs they have. And then we can get back to them and say, hey, we have these 5 guys on our team that meet those needs. And here's their availability. Would you like to proceed with any of them?
Yeah, very cool. I'm actually looking at your tell us about your needs form, and it looks like you just set it up with a type form, and it actually starts with a video. I think that's you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very cool.
That is
So it's
me.
like you're still getting the personal experience. You see there are real people behind this business, but that you don't have to fill up your calendars to make it work.
And so it really just has been a big push lately to get out of our own way, where, as nice as it is to have sales calls, every day and know that, I'm converting people to sign up to new plans, it's also that part of you that hurts, knowing that, there are other areas of the business you should be focusing on. Your time management probably is a little bit off because, you're prioritizing the one-off sale, which isn't really scalable. right? I can only scale to so many calls a day. And so, the big challenge for Mike and I is, how do we get out of this idea of linear growth? And like I said, our answer was, hey, let's go hard at Facebook advertising. Let's spend a long time figuring that out. And let's, make sure we know how to run a successful campaign on Facebook. And then we don't need to worry about being on the phones all day long or reaching out via cold emails or cold calls.
Yeah. Well, Jordan, this is really impressive what you've built here. And I think you've taken a very interesting approach at a pretty common problem, which is, WordPress development, especially in the agency world. So, of course, your website is RipplePop.com, and, we'll be excited to see, the developments over the next couple of years here. Anywhere else people can connect with you or follow along?
Yeah, you can. RipplePop.com is a great place. I'm sure if you search Jordan Johnson on LinkedIn, it will be impossible to find me in the sea of Jordan Johnsons out there.
Right.
But yeah, just go to our website. You can email us at hello@ripplepop.com. I monitor that email address. So, if you want to get right to me, you can just email me at hello@ripplepop.com or jordan@ripplepop.com. Either one will get right to me, and I'll, gladly answer any questions or chat with you about anything.
Very nice. Well, very cool. Thanks for doing this, Jordan.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
All right. All right. Did that give you something to think about? If it did, let me know on Twitter. I'm @CastJam. If you want to find show notes on this or any of the other episodes, or my weekly newsletter with new content, head over to productizeandscale.com. Now, if you haven't already, a 5-star review in iTunes, that would go a long way to helping other folks find the show. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.